to determine how effective the pass rush is?
Can you move the quarterback to get him off balance? Is he completing the ball? Sometimes I don't think you get are we pressuring him and we not let him get his feet set? Is he disrupting the timing of the play?
Where would you say the O-line is now compared to when this group first got together at the start?
13 weeks older.
What do you see progression-wise from them?
I've seen them grow as a group, and I think it happens with any team. We weren't together to start with, so them getting to learn Coach Stoutland and, what he's teaching and what he brings to the table. And then, the biggest consistency is that they've all been healthy, so we had an opportunity to all play together. And they've, you're starting to see similar looks when people play in, how they're trying to defend you. And, it's been a huge plus for us. I think one of the reasons we've been successful offensively is that all those guys have been successful. But I just seen them over time, they've grown as a group together, and that's a positive for us. So.
Why did Selleck and Cooper low five each other in that crossing route?
They like each other.
Brent said to ask you that maybe there was
a
reason for it.
Ask Brent.
Chip, the defensive line of the Lions, they have a reputation. Do you guys have to kind of be aware of what kind of stuff they might do, and how much of a concern is that?
It's not a concern. Our concern, the reputation I know about those guys is that they're outstanding football players and they play extremely hard, and you better buckle it up and get ready every play against those guys. So.
You talked about similar looks. Do you find defenses still focus on taking away McCoy? Is that really the way most teams go into play?
No, everybody's different, in terms of how they do it. But I think you get a body. I mean, you can run with it if you want, Les. But I think it's kind of they play into their strengths, and really from a look standpoint, it's we're going to see a 4-down front against the Detroit Lions. I mean, that look's not going to be different. But really, where the change-ups occur during the game is with the coverage and how are they going to handle the back end in terms of are they getting people closer to the box, or they're playing more man, how that aspects works. But people aren't really changing up their fronts against us.
Since Nick Foles started a few weeks ago, in what areas do you think he's most improved?
I don't know. I don't look at it that way. I've seen a growth from him in all facets, so I don't think one area more than the other area. There's a comfort level there. He can, as you're starting to call plays, he can finish the play call. I think he's got that comfort level because he knows what formations are matched to within the game plan. I think he's really taking a lot of ownership of what we're doing here. But I don't think there's one that's more than the other. But there's been overall improvement in everything he's done.
The more you've gone with 12 personnel, have you noticed defenses staying more in their base or going with their nickel? Has it changed as the season's gone along?
No, every team's different and every game's different, and that's why we approach every game like it's the season. So how the Redskins responded to us was maybe different than how the Cardinals responded to us. So it doesn't. There's not a lot of carryover because you got two entirely different entities and people making decisions that aren't the same. So, the Cardinal staff isn't going, hey, this is what the Redskins do, let's do what they do. They're going to do what their answer is, and that's what you find out during the game, what their answer is. So.
Is that the reason why it's become a lot of teams are doing it, because it's so difficult for defenses or coordinators to find the right personnel to match up against that?
I don't know why people do it. Sometimes people match, sometimes people don't match. That's a question more for defensive guys than offensive guys, I think.
Bringing your offense.
Yes?
When you thought about bringing your offense to this level, where you're operating now, how close is that to your ideal, and how much of the operations because of the way Foles is playing?
I don't have an ideal. Our job very simply is to move the ball and score points. So we never. I don't really care what it looks like. And the offense we run here is not Oregon's offense. It's the Philadelphia Eagles offense that was put together by a group of really smart guys on the offensive side of the ball, and everybody contributed to it. So there's some things we did at Oregon. There's some things that Jeff Stoutland did at Alabama. There's some things that Bobby Bicknell did with the Buffalo Bills. There's some things that Billy Lazor brought when he was in the NFL and when he was at Virginia. There's things Pat brought from Cleveland. So it's all of us putting it together. So
you've been asked a lot about the last couple of weeks about big receivers like Fitzgerald and Calvin Johnson and everything, but to see a smaller receiver like Deshaun having the season that he's having, what does that kind of say about receivers who aren't exactly 6'5" or 6'3" or
that? It depends on your production as a player. That and sometimes obviously there's things that height has to do with it, but there's not many guys that run like Deshaun or can catch the ball like Deshaun. So I think he doesn't have what he lacks in height. He makes up in all the other categories. So
when the game starts and you start taking a look at what the other defense is doing in terms of either matching or playing man or staying pace or whatever, is it common for teams to not show you what their real intention is early, so you think you're adjusting what they're doing, and then they flip to what they really want to do?
Yeah, it's way too smart for me.
I don't think it's too smart for me.
I don't see that, and I know as a play caller we don't do that. Hey, I'm going to call 3 shitty plays in a row, and let them think the next one's going to be shitty, and then we're going after them. I mean, I think that's a little bit. That's not my mentality, and that's what I meant. I'm not smart enough to. I mean, now you may think there's some shit. Hey, write that. If there's a shitty call on Sunday, just say he's setting him up. We knew what he was going to do.
By accident when you call 3 shitty ones in a row?
Totally by accident.
Chip, along those lines, you guys have only scored 7 points in each of the last second halves. How much of that comes down to adjustments in the game, and is there anything you need to do different from?
It comes down to everything. Yeah, I mean, we want to score points in the fourth quarter, but there's also cognizant. There's 2 things going on there. You're also trying to work the clock at the same time. So, when there's 2 games, the Tampa Bay game, Green Bay game, we did a really good job of it. There's other games we didn't. I don't think we scored any points in the fourth quarter of the Oakland Raiders game, but it didn't matter at that point in time. So.
You've been calling plays on offense for a long time. Are you any different now than when you first started doing it in New Hampshire? Before that, is there a process, or do you like where you are now?
I better like where I am now because this is where I am. So I mean, I've always believed play calling is based on your personnel. So it doesn't. You're trying to get your players in positions to make plays, and you have good days and bad days, just like players have good days and bad days. So.
Is it difficult to call plays though when you're on the field? Obviously head coach has.
I've been on the field. I've been on the field my whole life except for 2 years at Oregon when I was a coordinator and I was in the box. So.
You did the box up there.
Yeah.
The emphasis on the end of half scoring. Why is that such an emphasis? Scoring at the end of the half.
I don't know where I mean, we try to score on every possession, so I don't think there's an emphasis on the end of the half more than there is on any other part of the game. So.
Coach Selleck said that you remind players that during the season, when you guys are this far deep and the playoffs are within reach, you have to constantly remind them about just don't look ahead, too far, and just kind of focus just on the Lions here, week to week, day to day.
We don't. I mean, we meet every week at the beginning of the week and talk to them about the plan for that week, and that's it. That's what we've done since day one here, and I think they understand that. But we got a bunch of guys that understand the game and have been around it for a long time. I think if I have to tell them how to think, then we got the wrong guys in here. But when we meet, there's a purpose to our meeting, and so if I'm making stuff up, who's our opponent? What do they got to do? What are the keys to victory? And let's go play. So.
Brad Selleck said that he appreciated that you called him when you were drafting Zach Ertz and signed James Casey. Why did you decide to do that? And what was the reaction from him when you made those 2 moves?
He was fine. I called everybody. When we drafted Lane, I talked to Jason Peters and Todd and who our tackles were at the time. And, I just think it's when we sign free agents, we call the other guys at those positions on the team. I just think it's part of the process is that they're involved in this team, and I think they should understand what direction we're going in and why we're doing things. So.
Coach Clay Tomlin got a hefty fine yesterday. Regardless of his intention, how aware are you where you are at times on the sideline, and what does that fine mean maybe for you going forward?
You're not. I mean, I understand, Mike. There's times where you're not aware, and you kind of like, hold. I'm on the field, or I'm in the white, and so. I mean, I've been there before. I've gotten hit in college, and gotten a penalty for it, but I wasn't paying attention. So, I think you have to pay attention. So, it was unfortunate. What's that?
A wake-up call yesterday, seeing what could happen.
Yeah.
Chip, Brad Smith, how has he picked things up since he's been here?
Very well. I mean, one thing about Brad that struck me from day 2 here was how much he retained, from just his first meeting, and I was like, he's extremely smart, very, very intelligent football player, and I think his background's kind of interesting because he was a quarterback, so he learned things kind of globally growing up, so he could tell you, a lot of times receivers know what route they run on each individual play, but I don't know what everybody else is doing. Well, Brad has always learned it from the eyes of a quarterback, and I think that helped him in his ability to pick things up.
Some reps as a wide receiver. I mean, do you see him maybe playing a role going forward as a receiver?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.